Folks, neuroscience is the, you see that lady just appear out of thin air? That's what 99.9% of the people I see have those capacities. And so when I feel like nerve shock trauma like I'm feeling now, that means it's being triggered by them. Now, here's the thing, folks. If you can quantum leap, why the fuck do you need a pinch or to move at the rate that they do? Why the hell would you need someone's mobility infested and destabilized and nerve shock traumatized in any environment? I mean, you can move quickly, you can effectively teleport, right? You can transfer, you can do all these things. Why should the target have to suffer? You know what they're doing, folks, because they're breeding them in people's physiology. If not that directly, because if you can transfer, why can't you miniaturize? Why can't you do other things? And the minute they've honed in on anyone, this is what you get, exactly what's occurred in my life. And I'm sorry, folks, that is exactly who's exploiting it. That and people like that. And when this began, folks, in elderly, actually brain and spinal injury is parallel with the aging process anyway. And the inception of all this, the hive minds, when you hear me say I want justice, I intend to prosecute absolutely everyone, absolutely anyone and everyone. And you know what I think of the minions, right? They're terrorists, folks. It's just applied via neuroscience. And so somehow they seem to feel that they have the right, because they have this horrific technology in my physiology that's crippling me, and because they can call people niggers, and because they can call them, accuse them of being gay, and they're all queer anyway. I'm heterosexual, and my life is entrenched by neuroscience. It's basically, I'm imprisoned by it, I'm enslaved by it. I have no freedoms, I have no privacy, I clearly have no rights because they violate them like permanently. Ian Beard is obviously in my left hip, Ian Beard and crew, but then I've learned that Billy Clinton has a relative with a similar condition. So through the series of my history in the United States of America, I've always learned that the people that I've known, the things that I've suffered, the pain and the inconvenience is always parallel to the people in my life. So how do you determine that, would you say, folks? I'm just leaving a quick message.
The city center this way?
Yeah, you're pretty much in it. Yeah, but if you want to get to
Pretty much in it?
yeah, you're pretty much pretty much. Like 2 more blocks and you hit the Ramblers, I think. That's one of the main strips. Yep. Just keep going. Yep. So it's now what? It's 2001. George Bush took office. That's when I began feeling semblance of these, microorganism infestation, pinched nonsense, whatnot. In fact, they targeted me in 1994 in Portland, Oregon, Beth's old apartment, and then again in Santa Monica. That's the top right-hand side of the head issue, down the right-hand side of the body, but it transfers because remember the cervical, and the left and both left and right side, and of course the sternum, and now they've infested my stomach and terrorized my hip and my legs. And this they do permanently, folks. And what you must understand is that they are homosexuals that are running the show. Is that the idea was to cripple to the point of being manageable so they could institutionalize, and once I was institutionalized, then they would create a scenario, situation in which I was molested, basically raped, arse raped. And that's what they've been trying to procure with these sleep neuroscientific, neurotechnological molestations where they sweat your arsehole with an unnatural cold, seemingly from inside the physiology, harass your arsehole, and then homosexuals will stalk you for the next 24 to 48 hours. It's systematized. It's like, in London, it's common. It's almost permanent. Like every time you sleep, and it doesn't matter. You can call the cops, you can call the officials, you can call whoever. It just continues. So what do you do when you find yourself in that environment then? What would you call it? When you create stuff and you mind your own business and you try and go to the hospital and get attention, and medical treatment, and they show up and falsify being employees and doctors and nurses and deny you those basic rights and follow you, stalk you worldwide. What do you call that exactly? Where would you say that you are? And when you create like literature or patents or any kind of thing, intellectual, they then claim that their horrific concentration camp is the inspiration. So what do you do with that reality, would you say? You probably never heard this. You probably had no clue. You probably figured there was some grandiose unfolding at work. And no chance. They wanted me to be gay. They wanted me to be subservient. They wanted me to be manhandled and physically assaulted and then sexually assaulted to try and impose homosexuality or bisexuality. Then they wanted to infect with the HIV/AIDS virus, and everything I've done, they would then claim that was all just neuroscience. So what do you do when you can't even walk down the street? You can't even sleep because they can, a satellite can detect my location at any time. So it probably even tell you via retina, whether I'm awake or if I'm sleeping. It doesn't matter though, because the retina feed, which is probably in the eyelids there, and then back behind the eyes. That's really what they did in 2009, was just place enough infection in foods or enough chemicals in food to cause a reaction to cause my eye to rupture. That's really what they did. And then blind my vision, but keep their neuroscience, their neurotechnological side. So doesn't that sound like they had the plan to infest physically, and overrun? And don't forget now, when I experience these molestations during sleep, when they do so, it's seemingly it's inside my physiology. So all that gurgling and rumbling and all that noise that we hear inside my gut, that's probably it. That's obviously what's pinching my spine and pinching my hip and pinching my shoulder and tugs at the sternum, tries to pull the head and the neck down forwards and all kinds of shit. So what do you do with that? So when you've got some of these most sophisticated technologies imaginable and your life's been reduced to this permanently, where would you say you were, folks? And what would you say were your rights? Okay, and now think back for all these years that I've been oppressed, subjected to this environment. If you think someone's gay, what do? Do you infest them? Do you breed horrific cannibalistic technologies in their physiology and destabilize them, and then oppress and socially track and harass and stalk and pester and oppress them and plagiarize and enslave them? Is that what you do if you think someone's gay? Is that how it works, right? Is it really? Or do you just approach them? And if you were to orchestrate some kind of sting, how long might that take? Their entire adult lives, do you think? Would that be acceptable? Is that like just police work, would you say, or law enforcement? Or would you say that was a slave trading ring? Given the situation, and given the results, and given the history, what would you call that? You got a healthy, able-bodied male, right? HIV negative, who is infested to the point that it's crippled his mobility, and they then claim that is called manageability. They actually, not officially, because remember, I don't even have access to a law firm, because anytime I do anything, it's predetermined by these guys who have my cerebral energy in their infrastructure anyway, in their institutions anyway, if they're not wearing it. And that's brain advanced, so you know what that means, right? That's brain imaging. So what do you call that then? So how is this justified? So what do? Do I escape another country? And then where am I when I arrive? Because it may be a great country, but guess who's around me? A neuroscience. So it's the same tactics, the same game, the same criminality, the same terrorism, the same, exactly the same application. So what do you do with it? You think playing nice is the answer, really? And where does that get you then? less pinched for the next 30 years, and less traumatized, terrorized, oppressed, ostracized? I mean, you've literally got women that are AIDS victims that are orchestrating, intimacy with me. Come on, really? I know it's been a while, but I've had a phenomenal life. So why would I even consider that? So guess what happens to my physiology then? Go. Take a wild guess. If the camera was even on that guy in any way, shape, or form, questionably, then guess what would happen to my legs and my physiology and my night? So what do you call it? Do you call them heroes when they infest someone and cripple them and destabilize them and torture them and stalk them and actually create a revenue source from that? Or do you call it a concentration camp? Do you call it inhumane? Do you call it slavery, basically, terrorism? What would you call it if it was occurring to you or your loved ones? I don't even acknowledge my family, so hear it from me. I don't give a shit what they say. Hear it from me. They cease to exist. I don't even acknowledge them. I'm not interested in apologies. I'm not interested in any kind of reconciliation with anyone. I want justice. I want full and proper legal proceedings, and to ensure that the hive minds are prosecuted. They're arrested and they're prosecuted, and they pay restitution, and I can move on with my life. I can rid my body of this torment and torture and move on with my life. That's what I want. I don't give a shit about what people think. I couldn't give a crap. Believe what you want. All the better for me while I'm off someplace enjoying my life with my woman of interest. I couldn't give a crap. So how do you suppose then a person should proceed? You're being crippled, folks. You're being stalked. You're being terrorized. You're being tracked. And the minute you do anything independently, because it doesn't serve them, because they want you infected and infected. So the minute you even walk down the street and off to the gym, because you have your own plan, but you see the gym makes you look better, it doesn't help them. So they have their technology in your physiology. So guess what happens to you? You get tortured. You get internally nerve shock, traumatized, terrorized. If you fall, you're so frail from the laced foods that they claim is the only way to rid your body of these infestations. Whereas I know testosterone and cortisone and antibiotics would solve the trick right there, predominantly. And then resources, money, good few medical visits, hospital visits. That'd be right as rain. A few injections here and there, that'd be right as rain. Within a year, I'd be back to a natural capacity. I'm natural now, but moot point if you're not functioning. Well, you've got your testicles and your nervous system all infested and terrorized. And don't even consider that when you hear their officials mention that in any way, shape, or form that benefits me, they begin terrorizing my food. They'll throw seemingly like locust-type lice in your clothing, just on the off chance that you might wind up getting butt-fucked by one of them, or butt-fucking them. You're not interested, but they couldn't give a shit. They've got you terrorized, remember? They've got your nerve shock pinched and destabilized and infested and traumatized. So what do you call that environment exactly? And who justifies it? Which country? Which court of law? So, make no mistake, folks. That's my environment.